Imagine this. Dusk is settling, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Suddenly, a bridge materializes before you, shimmering in the fading light. It's not on any map. A quiet voice, like the rustling of leaves, offers you a deal. One borrowed breath of tomorrow, a glimpse, a feeling, a single moment from your future, in exchange for just one single, completely honest sentence. A truth you've never spoken aloud, maybe one you've never even admitted to yourself. Would you step onto that bridge? What truth is bubbling up inside you right now, just thinking about it? If a bridge appeared at dusk and offered you one borrowed breath of tomorrow in exchange for a single honest sentence, would you step on it? The first time Elias heard tomorrow breathing, he was standing on a footbridge the town kept forgetting it had. It wasn't on any map, not even the ones with coffee stains and pencil ghosts. It appeared only at the hinge between day and night, when the sun slid under the ribs of the hills and the river put on its evening face. Elias had come there because that's what widowers do when the house remembers too loudly. He leaned on the railing, counting heartbeats like a man counting change, and felt the bridge exhale, warm, deliberate, like someone on the other side was fogging the glass to draw a message with a finger. "Not yet," he whispered to the air, surprised by the steadiness in his voice. "Please, not yet." The reply was a sound he hadn't heard since the morning his wife, Miriam, forgot her name. 3 notes, no words, the opening of a lullaby she used to hum without thinking. He turned so fast his knee complained like an old hinge. The far end of the bridge had grown longer, a thread pulled from a sweater. Dusk seemed to gather there like a shawl around a figure he couldn't quite see. Elias stepped forward. The boards under his boots felt like the neck of a cello, smooth, willing. He took another step and felt something unusual take his hand without touching it. Time, perhaps, trying to be polite. On the 5th plank, he stopped. There was a mark in the wood, a small oval worn by someone's heel, exactly where a person might pause to reconsider their life. He put his foot in it because that's how humans read maps we didn't know we were making. The air thickened, and he saw it. A parallel bridge growing into the dusk, like a reflection that had decided to become real. On it stood a young woman with ink on her fingers and a backpack too heavy for her spine. She lifted her head as if she'd heard a violin tune through a wall and was trying to decide whether it was worth opening the door. "Hello?" she called. Her voice was wind with a future. Elias didn't answer at first. He was busy negotiating with the part of him that had sworn never to believe in anything again. "Can you see me?" he asked finally. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I can feel you, like a song you know before you hear it." She took a breath that steadied the night. "I'm Ada." "Elias," he said. "What year is it for you?" She laughed, short and surprised. "Nobody's ever asked me that." "Nobody?" "People come," she said, glancing down the lengthening bridge. "Not many. Only at this hour. Sometimes it is an old man with grease under his nails who asks me if I know how to fix a carburetor. Sometimes a little girl who wants to show me a drawing of a horse that looks like a cloud with legs. They always ask what my name means." "What does it mean?" "Ada," she considered. "In my mother's mouth it means home. In my father's it means be careful. In my own it means I'm trying." Elias smiled before he remembered how. "For me," he said, "Miriam meant stay." He said her name like a candle's first light. Ada took another step. The bridge didn't creak. "Why are you here, Elias, who says stay?" "Because my house keeps remembering," he said. "Because her shoes still wait by the door in 2 different sizes, the ones for walking and the ones for going to concerts. Because the calendar is stuck on the month with fireworks and I can turn it without lying to something that loved us. Because I used to make a living convincing teenagers that Bach was not an apology but a promise, and now I can't convince myself that mornings are worth boiling water for." Ada nodded slowly, as if he'd said something in a language she did not speak, but recognized from a childhood she hadn't had yet. "I think the bridge brings people who need companions for the 5 planks," she said. 5 to cross and 5 to come back. It is the same with breaths in a panic attack. You count in 5 and out 5, and the world forgives you for being a person. "Do you come here often?" he asked. surprised by the cliché of the question. "Only when I have to make a decision that breaks me either way," she said. "I draw the future for a living. Posters, book covers, murals on brick walls that always smell like yesterday. Today someone offered me a gallery if I make work that doesn't look like mine. It would change how my mother looks at me. It would change how I look at myself. I don't know whether to say yes to money or to the part of me that wants to paint the way rain feels on skin. So I came to ask a stranger from another century how to be a person." "I taught music," Elias said. "It's similar. What do you need that you're not allowed to say out loud?" Ada closed her eyes. "I need someone to tell me that losing one future to choose another isn't betrayal." Elias breathed until it didn't hurt to speak. "All choosing is a kind of grief," he said. "We bury the lives we didn't live so the one we do can breathe." Ada opened her eyes. "What do you need?" "Forgiveness," he said quietly. "For not being able to sing her to sleep when the dark got loud. For wishing sometimes in the worst minutes for it to be over. For still being here." "The worst minutes," Ada repeated, tasting the phrase. "I think the bridge borrows those from us so we don't have to carry them alone." Downriver, someone laughed the way people laugh when a fire catches after refusing all afternoon. The bridge shivered. The dusk thickened into a color with no name. "Do we go farther?" Elias asked. Ada reached out. Their hands didn't touch, but the air between them learned their shape. 5 planks forward, 5 back, she said. "I think the middle belongs to neither of us." They walked. The boards were warm with other people's pauses. On the 4th plank, Elias heard a child's voice ask, "Do you think frogs know they're green?" On the 2nd, a breathless teenage confession, "I just want someone to make the first move so I don't have to keep pretending I'm brave." On the 1st, an old woman's laugh that sounded exactly like a creek in late spring. The bridge was a library of small sentences, each checked out just long enough to return the person who needed it to themselves. At the center, the air changed. It smelled like oranges and old pages and the space under a piano where sound goes to grow up. The river below looked less like water and more like time learning to be light. The dusk ahead of Ada brightened. The dusk behind Elias thickened into stars. "I think," Ada said softly, "this is where we speak into each other's empty room." They stood like that, 2 silhouettes stitched by the same twilight, and Elias did what he hadn't had the courage to do at Miriam's bedside. He sang. Not with a voice anyone would pay to hear. With the voice a hurt person borrows when a melody is the only thing that believes them. He hummed the lullaby she had taught to their son before the fever took him into a summer without edges. He hummed the stubborn minor third that always made her smile, even when there was nothing else to smile at. He hummed for Ada, too, because there is a way the young need to be sung to that has nothing to do with age. When he finished, Ada had tears on her mouth. She pressed the heel of her hand to her chest. "I can't carry your song," she said, "but I can make something that remembers it." She took a charcoal stub from her pocket. Artists know to carry the means to rescue themselves. On the 5th plank, she drew a line that looked like river and regret, and a road that doesn't mind not ending. On the 4th, she drew a hand holding another hand without touching it. On the 3rd, a window with night blooming in it like ink dropped in milk. On the 2nd, a small boy with frog-bright eyes asking a question that saves his mother for 5 minutes she needed to survive the next 5. On the 1st, a profile that could have been Miriam at 25. If you'd met her in a train station where she decided not to leave because someone with ink-stained fingers told her a stranger had hummed her name across a bridge. "I think that's how we keep time kindly," she said, tucking the charcoal back. "We make marks so the next person knows where to put their feet." "We used to mark the floorboards in my classroom," Elias said, "so the timid ones knew where to stand to find the note they didn't dare." "You'll go back and teach again," Ada said, as if naming a future is the first spell you learn as a child. "You'll teach people my age that grief isn't an enemy. It's a country we learn the language of so we can visit without getting lost." "And you?" Elias asked. "Will you take the gallery?" "I'll take a smaller one," she said, smiling. "One that lets me paint the way rain feels. And I'll send my mother pictures of every opening, and she'll still worry, and that will be the religion we keep together." They turned, 5 planks back. The boards remembered them. On the second, Ada said, "Tell me one small true thing about Miriam that isn't in any obituary." "She had a freckle exactly where a violinist's chin rests," he said, the sentence arriving like a bird that finally trusted the sill. "She said it was her orchestra birthmark." "Thank you," Ada said. "Now it'll be in mine." At the railing, where the bridge returned to its shorter, ordinary self, they paused. The night was readying the town for sleep, and somewhere a dog achieved the perfect bark and repeated it until the moon agreed. "Tomorrow," Elias said, "I'll visit the music room. I'll take the blue tape and put an X on the floor where the middle C should land for a body that forgets where to stand. Tomorrow I'll sign a lease with chipped paint on the door and light that makes honest shadows," Ada said. "Elias, can I ask something selfish? Please. Do you think that people we love send us the bridges we need? I think we build them together from the days we didn't know were lumber. They didn't hug. It wasn't that kind of magic. They simply stood long enough for the bridge to learn them." When it exhaled again, they stepped away. After that, Elias went most evenings. Not because he believed the bridge would always appear, belief had learned modesty under grief, but because standing on ordinary wood looking into ordinary dusk is itself a way to stay alive. Some nights no one came, and he found he liked those as much as any visitation. They were like rest notes in a long measure. Some nights a man with paint on his shirt asked him whether forgiveness has a price list. Some nights a child informed him that frogs probably wished for pockets. Some nights Ada returned with charcoal under every nail, laughing about how a client wanted a mural with less weather in it. Once, a woman about his age arrived, placed a single walnut on the railing, and said, "I was supposed to make a pie, and instead I made a phone call I owed someone since 1998. The bridge was democratic with miracles. It rationed them into sentences. When spring found the river and loosened it, Elias took a job at the school 2 days a week. He taught scales to teenagers who rolled their eyes at first, and then found, to their horror, that the marks on paper told the truth if your breathing did. He told them Bach was a promise, and they told him he was corny, and both were right. He told them that grief is a tempo you don't get to choose, but you can choose whether to play it on 1 note or 3. On the anniversary of Miriam forgetting, Elias brought a cup of tea to the bridge and a piece of blue tape in his pocket. The dusk tied a ribbon on the hills. The boards were warm. He hummed the lullaby because some debts are sweet to pay each year. The bridge held its breath, then let it go, then borrowed a breath from somewhere else and sewed it into his. On the 5th plank he stuck the tape, just a finger's length, invisible in the dark. A child would find it someday and put a shoe there, and the note would behave. Ada arrived late, hair damp, cheeks flushed with weather and work. "I made a painting of a bridge that doesn't exist," she said. A reviewer said it reminded him of a conversation he'd forgotten to have. "I think that's the best review I'll ever get." "Keep it," he said. "Keep what?" "The feeling," he said, "of making something that gets a stranger home." "You look more here," Ada said after a while, searching for a word. "It's like your outline got darker." "I stopped waiting for mornings to prove themselves," he said. "I started making them honest." The summer brought thunderheads that strutted across the hills like men in expensive suits. The bridge took them seriously and shook when it had to, but it did not collapse. In August, Elias saw a boy with frog-proud eyes stand on the 4th plank and ask the knight if kindness was a talent or a habit. The knight passed him a pencil, and he wrote the question on his shoe. In September, the town orchestra invited Elias to conduct a rehearsal for the first time since Miriam's forgetting. His hands remembered the language, his heart did too. He lifted the baton like a person lifting a fragile thing they still trust, and the first note arrived with the grace of a bird that has already chosen to land. He cried in front of everyone. Nobody minded. The clarinetist handed him a tissue without looking up from his part. On a cold evening when leaves were the only currency trees had left, Ada came to the bridge with a letter. "It's for you," she said, and laughed at his surprise. "It's from a woman who saw the mural with the window and the night blooming in it. She said it made her forgive her daughter for not becoming the kind of person she already knows how to love." Elias held the envelope like a little bird. "Tell her thank you," he said. Tell her that is the bravest love I know. The winter Miriam had not reached turned out to be beautiful, sharp as a bell. The town roofed itself in white and pretended to be a postcard. People were kinder to one another in the grocery store line, possibly because their breath was visible and they remembered it was alone. The bridge still came, stitched cleanly into dusk. Sometimes Elias thought he saw, beyond the place where the boards blurred into a road that only night knew, the shape of a woman with a freckle exactly where a violinist's chin rests. He did not call her name. Some prayers are answer enough as silence. On the last day of that year, the river wore a skin of ice so thin you could hear it think. Elias brought 2 cups of tea and sat with Ada while the town rehearsed for midnight. "What will you do when the bridge doesn't come anymore?" she asked without sadness. "Keep the showing," he said. "Lights don't hold, they show. Music doesn't keep. It lets go in a shape that teaches you how. Promise me you'll make a sign for the kids in your classroom," she said. "Blue tape on the floor where their fear thinks it deserves to stand, and another piece where their courage does. It's already there." He smiled. They counted 5 breaths in and 5 out. The bridge breathed with them. Somewhere a dog achieved a new perfect bark and retired from the art, satisfied. Midnight practiced in the distance. The boards under their feet hummed like a good cello. "Look," Ada whispered. At the far edge of the bridge, where dusk kept the door for dawn, a woman stepped into the almost light. She did not wave. She did not speak. She placed her hand on the railing, exactly where Miriam had always placed hers when she insisted on stopping to watch the water do its one job. The woman lifted her chin slightly, the way violinists do when they decide to forgive their instrument for being a stubborn miracle. Then she turned and walked into a morning that was not yet there. Elias didn't cry. He laughed, the sound a bell makes when it remembers its name. "Thank you," he told the boards, the dusk, Ada himself. "Thank you for not wanting to last forever. Thank you for wanting to be enough." When spring came back and the hill ribs greened under the rain, the bridge still appeared, not every night, but often enough to remind the town that time likes to be kept kindly. Ada painted a mural on the brick by the river, a bridge of charcoal boards with small blue marks on the 5th plank, where someone could put a shoe and feel brave upon arrival. People touched the marks without knowing why, and left with their outlines a little darker. Elias taught the timid ones where to stand. He taught the fearless to leave room. He taught everyone to count 5 in and 5 out when panic wanted to steal their music. He began sometimes to sing again in his kitchen, not for ghosts, but for whoever might be listening without a body. On his last evening on Earth, long after Ada had turned her ink into doors for strangers to find, Elias walked to the bridge with a paper cup of tea and a piece of blue tape in his pocket. The boards were warm. The dusk leaned, gentle as a forehead, to a window. He stuck the tape on the 1st plank, right at the edge, for the next person who would be braver than they knew. He set the cup on the railing for whoever would arrive cold. He hummed the lullaby without apology. When the bridge exhaled, he exhaled with it. He closed his eyes and felt tomorrow breathing on the other side, polite and patient. He did not step forward. He had already crossed. He had been crossing, plank by plank, with every small true thing he'd learned to say. Some nights, when the town needs it, the bridge borrows twilight and gives it back softer. People come. They ask a stranger how to be a person. They leave marks so the next set of feet knows where to stand. And if you listen carefully, above the river's one job and the dog's latest perfect bark, you can hear an old man laughing like a bell, grateful that love taught him to keep the showing.